Hello again, everybody, and this is not my typical video. My next video was meant to be the third episode of Season 2 review, but I don't have the screen caps and everything ready for that yet. However, I did get some time where I could do another video, so I figured I would do one about what I mentioned at the end of the 202 review. And that is the one major complaint I have about Game of Thrones. And as I said, I am not one of those book people that sit there and complain about every little thing the show does. However, I do have one complaint about the show. And that is the fact that they have completely and totally removed about 99% of the prophecies and dreams and visions that were in the book from the show. We do get a couple with Bran and Melisandre here and there, but for the most part they've taken out every single dream and prophecy that has ever happened in the book, even though I find them to be the most interesting part of the story and the one that gives you the most to think about and speculate about and ponder and wonder how things are going to turn out, because of course the book series isn't even done. There's at least 2 more books to go, so we don't know how any of these are really going to turn out. And plus, with prophecies, they're all open to interpretation. You think they mean one thing, and then they do come true, but in a completely different way than what you originally thought. So that is the nature of prophecy. Now, I've told people before, I haven't read all 5 books, but I have looked into a lot of the lore and history, and that includes the prophecies and dreams. I've only read the first 2 books, and I've only watched the first 4 seasons. But, like I said, I have looked into a lot of the background, and that's how I came across most of these prophecies. I mean, there were a few in the first 2 books, but I went and looked up the whole prophecy and dream and vision in relation to A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the series that the show is based on, of course. So if you are strictly a show watcher, which I mainly consider myself to be a show watcher as well, but if you are strictly a show watcher, you may consider what I'm about to talk about to be spoiler-ish, because it's all from the book and very little of it's included in the show. And it does talk about things that may or may not happen in the future. But as I said, prophecies and dreams and visions are all open to interpretation. So they're possible spoilers, but only if you can interpret them accurately, which is very hard to do, because most of the time they do come true, but not in a way you actually thought that they would come true. So, that is my semi-spoiler warning, because I am going to be talking about stuff from the books that is not included in the show, and stuff that may come to pass in the future. But as I said, everything when you're dealing with prophecy is open to interpretation. So they're theoretical spoilers, so to speak. So if you're afraid of anything at all being revealed through the interpretations that have been given of these prophecies, because there's actually a big section of them in the Wiki of Ice and Fire, and that's where I discovered most of these prophecies. So there is accepted interpretations of the ones that have come to pass, and there's also theories about how they may come to pass that may or may not be true. So there is your semi-spoiler warning. If you don't want to know anything at all, you probably don't want to watch this. However, if you do like speculating and hearing about what might happen and trying to guess at how it's going to happen, which I like doing. I don't like spoilers, but I like clues and hints, and that's what dreams and prophecies and visions are in the series. They're clues and hints to how things might work out, and then your brain has to put together the details, and then you watch and see what happens. So if you like that kind of thing, then go ahead and continue to watch this, because that's basically what prophecies are. So I'm going to go through the majority of the prophecies that are in the first 5 books, As I said, these can all be found on the Wiki of Ice and Fire, so if you want to look them up and go deeper into them, they're all there. But just to go over them, if you haven't heard them, some I found very, very interesting, and some have already come true, some have partially come true, and some we don't know, but we can speculate about, and that's what I love doing, speculating. Not spoiling, but speculating. So, if you're still here, that means you're interested and you want to hear what these prophecies are. So let's get into it. We're going to go in semi-chronological order, because that's how it's set up on Wiki. But the first one is, like I said, semi-chronological. The first one took place before the Doom. That is the Doom of Valyria, which is kind of our equivalent to Pompeii. If you want to equate it to modern times, there's this very advanced society, Valyria, and the Valyrian Doom, basically a cataclysmic world event, catastrophe, wiped out Valyria and destroyed them, and they were one of the most advanced societies in ancient history of the world of the Song of Ice and Fire. And the Doom is how they were destroyed. And basically the entire Valyrian Peninsula, which is over in Essos, was wiped out by this natural disaster. But before this happened, there is a prophecy that ties directly to our characters, because this prophecy was given by Daenerys Targaryen. Yes, she is one of the ancestors of Daenerys Targaryen, and Daenerys is almost sort of named after her, because Daenerys is D-A-E-N-E-R-Y-S, and Daenerys, I'm not even sure on the pronunciation, but I'm guessing it's pronounced like Rhaenys, because it's very similar in spelling. It's D-A-E-N-Y-S. So Daenerys Targaryen was a young girl. She was called Daenerys the Dreamer, and she was the daughter of Lord Aenar Targaryen, the ancestor of House Targaryen. And she was said to have had a gift of prophecy that she wrote down in a legendary book called Signs and Portents. It is believed that this was a premonition of the Doom of Valyria, and it happened 12 years before it happened, which is why the Targaryens left Valyria and went to Dragonstone. They were the only ones that listened to this prophecy and took it seriously, and that's when the Targaryens left and settled on Dragonstone instead with 5 of their dragons, because the Targaryens in Valyria were dragon riders, and because of Daenerys' premonition 12 years before the Doom, they went to Dragonstone with their 5 dragons, and then started the Targaryen history in Westeros with that led to Aegon, Rhaenys, and Visenya, and their 3 dragons taking over the 7 kingdoms. So their ancestor, Daenerys Targaryen, had this premonition that Valyria would be destroyed, and 12 years later it happened. So that's just the first premonition. And like I said, this is semi-chronological, so that one's way far back, before the Doom of Valyria. Now, another one was the time period is considered after the conquest, and it's another Targaryen, Daeron Targaryen, and he is one of the characters from The Hedge Knight, which was one of the Dunk and Egg Tales, which is somewhat of a prequel to Game of Thrones. So what happened here is that Prince Daeron Targaryen, he lived about 90 years before the show starts, and he claimed to have dreams that consistently came true. Now, they included foresights about events resulting from the Trial of 7 after the tourney at Ashford Meadow, and they seem to have been fulfilled during the Hedge Knight. And he also prophesied that dragons would someday return. And that was also confirmed by an independent prediction found by King Aerys I. So, this guy, I haven't read The Head Knight of the Duncan Egg Tales, but the important one here that's directly related to the show is that this is the guy that had the premonition that dragons would someday return, which of course happens at the end of season 1, at the end of Game of Thrones, the book. And another Targaryen-ish prediction was by Daemon Blackfyre. The Blackfyres were the illegitimate children of a Targaryen. The Blackfyre Rebellion was a thing that happened in history, so the Blackfyres are illegitimate Targaryens, basically. They had their own bastard name, I guess, because you know how the Seven Kingdoms have bastard names. Well, this was the bastard name for this line of Targaryens, Daemon Blackfyre. This also happened in the Duncan Egg Tales. It was, I think, the third one, called the Mystery Knight. Like I said, most of this, you can find it all on the Wiki of Ice and Fire, and I did not read the Hedge Knight Tales, but I'm just going through all the different premonitions and prophecies that have been in the story, Song of Ice and Fire. And the Mystery Knight is the one that this came from, and it features Sir John the Fiddler, an alias of Daemon Blackfyre, and he had dreams that he claimed to be completely reliable, but he fully believes his claims, but they're usually more symbolic than literal, which a lot of prophecies are. And he dreamt about the death of his elder brothers, Aemon and Aegon, during the first Blackfyre Rebellion at the Redgrass Field. And he also dreamt about the future membership of Sir Duncan the Tall in the Kingsguard, which is briefly mentioned. That guy is briefly mentioned, I believe, in season 4 of the show. If you've seen all current seasons, that's when Joffrey and Jaime are in the room looking at the Book of Brothers, and they mention Sir Duncan the Tall. He's actually mentioned a few times. Daemon Blackfyre also had a prophecy about the hatching of a dragon's egg at White Castle, and he was correct about the deaths of his brothers, and he was correct about Duncan the Tall being in the Kingsguard, but his interpretation of the dragon's egg hatching at White Castle was that he believed an actual egg would hatch, but Brynden Rivers, who we have met in the last episode of season 4, although they didn't say his name, but Daemon believed an actual egg would hatch, but Brynden Rivers points out that it was a Targaryen, namely Prince Aegon, under the alias of Egg, who hatched at this place, and not the actual dragon's egg that had been present at the castle. So, he believed it was a dragon's egg, but really it was a Targaryen that was born there. So, like I said, it's accurate, but not exactly the way he thought it would be. Then, that takes care of all the, before the show prophecies, and then we move into, the ones that actually involve the current characters. And we talk a little bit about Bran Stark's prophecies and dreams and visions. And I'm doing this as if you've seen all 4 seasons, because most of us have at this point. So, Bran begins to experience dreams after he fell off the tower, and his spiritual guide, Three-Eyed Crow, Three-Eyed Raven, they appear to be what's called the green dreams of a green seer. And one of those that he has says he saw his mother sitting alone in a cabin, looking at a blood-stained knife on a table in front of her. As the rowers pulled at their oars and Sir Roderick leaned across the rail, shaking and heaving, a storm was gathering ahead of them, a vast dark roaring lashed by lightning, but somehow they could not see it. Now, the accepted interpretation of this is that it shows Lady Catelyn Tully's trip with Sir Roderick to King's Landing. They're then given false information about the ownership of the knife that's wielded by the assassin hired to slay Bran, and as a result of this misinformation, they then abduct Tyrion Lannister and take him to the Eyrie to stand trial on charges of murder. And upon learning of his younger brother's captivity, Jaime Lannister attacks Ned Stark to demand his brother's return, and Tywin Lannister takes a different tack and instead calls his bannermen and makes warfare on the Trident. And the prophecy goes on to say, he saw his father pleading with the king, his face etched with grief. He saw Sansa crying herself to sleep at night, and he saw Arya watching in silence and holding her secrets hard in her heart. There were shadows all around them. One shadow was as dark as ash, with the terrible face of a hound. Another was armored like the sun, golden and beautiful. Over them both loomed a giant in armor made of stone, but when he opened his visor, there was nothing inside but darkness and thick black blood. Now, the accepted interpretation of this one is that it shows Ned distraught over Robert's decision to send an assassin after Dany. Sansa and Arya are depicted in their reactions to the death of Lady Micah. The shadow at the face of the hound is Sandor Clegane. The one who is armored like the sun is possibly Jaime Lannister with his gilded armor, but also possibly Oberyn Martell, whose armor is made of copper. The giant in armor made of stone is likely Robert Strong, seeing as the poisons used by Oberyn Martell blacken and thicken Gregor Clegane's blood. So then our next bit of prophecy from Bran, I guess some of this gets into book stuff, but still, I just want to cover all the prophecies that are important to the show. The next from Bran says, finally he looked north. He saw the wall shining like a blue crystal, and his bastard brother Jon sleeping alone in a cold bed, his skin growing pale and hard, as the memory of all warmth fled from him. And this could be referring to the events in Jon Snow's last chapter in A Dance with Dragons, opening the possibility that Jon's dead, because the one spoiler I've heard is that at the end of book 5, Jon's very badly injured and people think he might be dead. Alternatively, this also could mean that Jon is confined in an iced cell in this vision. Now, Jon is one of my favorite characters, so that one kind of upset me until you get into the prophecy about Azor Ahai. Then the idea of Jon dying upsets me a little less, as we'll get to, because that's one of the prophecies I'm planning to talk about too, Azor Ahai. So anyway, on with Bran's next one. It says, now you know, the crow whispered as it sat on his shoulder, now you know why you must live. Why, Bran said, not understanding, falling, because winter is coming. And that one suggests Bran's importance in the coming events. In other words, Bran is going to be very important to the endgame of the entire series. So, those are some of Bran's little prophecies and visions. And moving on, we go to one of my other favorite characters, Daenerys Targaryen. And the first time Dany has any kind of prophetic dream is a few days before she gets married to Khal Drogo. And the dream starts off with her brother Viserys hitting her, but it quickly turns prophetic as she witnesses the hatching of a dragon. Now, in one of my reviews, I said that the reason she was putting the dragon on the hot coals and everything is because she had been having dreams and visions. Well, this is one of them that she had even before she married Khal Drogo. And the prophecy goes, her thighs were split with blood. She closed her eyes and whimpered. As if in answer, there was a hideous ripping sound and the crackling of some great fire. When she looked again, Viserys was gone. Great columns of flame rose all around, and in the midst of them was the dragon. So that's how that prophecy goes, and it's taken to mean that later, when Dany's pregnant with her child from Drogo, the Dosh Khalim crones predict that predicts that she's going to eventually be the mother of the stallion who mounts the world. So, yeah, she had a prophecy about basically giving birth to the last dragon, or, as we see in the show, actual dragons. So, another is, upon, it's Melisandre, but it's directly related to Dany, and when Dany loses her baby, Miri tells Dany that Drogo will return to her when, quote, when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry, and mountains blow in the wind like leaves, when your womb quickens again, and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before. Now, there is no interpretation written for this one, because it hasn't all come true yet. But there's theories that when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east is a reference to Dorne, because their symbol is the sun spear, and they are in Westeros. It's a reference to Dorne coming into power in the west, in Westeros, which it looks like is being set into action by the end of book 3, when Oberyn dies, and his people are going to have a reaction to that. And sets in the east, this one, some people believe that it's a reference to Quentyn Martell getting killed in Essos. Like I said, I'm not this far in the book, but this is just the theories I've heard about what the sun rises in the west and sets in the east might mean. When the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves, again, these are just theories, not an accepted interpretation, but seas go dry could refer to Dany seeing that the Dothraki Sea is what it's called, is all drying up and wilting away when she flies over. And when the mountains blow in the wind like leaves, another theory on that one, and like I said, it's just a theory, not an accepted interpretation. A theory is about Marine being destroyed because the pyramids are something like mountains. But it also, I don't know, it could have something to do with the mountain being defeated at the end of book 3 in that fight. So, maybe. Now the last one, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child. This one, nobody's really positive on what that's going to mean, although there's an instance where, I guess in book 5, Dany might have a miscarriage, but it's not really said, and plus, even if that did happen, it wouldn't be a living child, so that part is still up for interpretation there. Or, it could just be she's eventually going to be with Drogo again, which could mean that she's going to die. A lot of people don't think that Dany's going to die, because she's going to have a big part of the final part of the entire story, but like I said, they're prophecies, and everybody's just guessing at them at this point. And the next one is also another one that Dany hears, and it's Quaithe. Quaithe, yes, Quaithe. She, if you've already seen season 2, which I hope you have if you're listening to this, Quaithe is the Shadowbinder. She's the woman in that weird mask that they see in Qarth. And she gives Dany a prophecy 2 different times. The first one is kind of more of a demand that Dany goes to Ahai. And what Quaithe says to her is, quote, "To go north you must go south. To reach the west you must go east. To go forward you must go back. And to touch the light you must pass beneath the shadow." Ahai, Dany thought, she would have me go to Ahai. "Will the Ahai give me an army?" she demanded. "Will there be gold for me in Ahai? Will there be ships? What is there in Ahai that I will not find in Qarth?" "Truth," said the woman in the mask. Unquote. So, Ahai is often referred to as the shadow of Ahai, so that's where the pass beneath the shadow part refers to Ahai. To go north, you must go south. To reach west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. Touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. That deals a lot with Dany's travels throughout the series. She's going one direction when she needs to go a different direction a lot of the time. But following when she leaves Meereen on Drogon's back again, I believe that's part of Book 5, Dany considers staying in his lair in the Dothraki Sea, but she remembers Quaithe's words, to go forward you must go back, which provides her with resolve to walk back toward Meereen. The second is an accurate warning of the dangers she comes to face in the near future. The second prophecy seems, however, to involve a vision of Quaithe as opposed to her own person, and may originate in Daenerys herself. And that one says, "No, hear me, Daenerys Targaryen, the glass candles are burning, soon comes the pale mare, and after her the others, Kraken and Dark Flame, and Griffin, the sun's son, and the mummer's dragon. Trust none of them. Remember the Undying. Beware the perfumed seneschal." That's another one she hears. And, like I said, not all of them have been interpreted, but these are just what the prophecies are, so interpret as you will. And, they believe the pale mare is Bloody Flux. Kraken is Victorian Greyjoy. Dark Flame is Mokoro. Lion is Tyrion Lannister. Griffin is Jon Connington. The Sun's Son, Doran Martell and Quentyn Martell. The Mummer's Dragon, Varys, and who is believed to be Aegon Targaryen at the end of Book 5. And it goes on to say, trust none of them, remember the Undying, beware the perfumed seneschal, and the Undying, of course, the Undying ones. And so yeah, like I said, they don't all have interpretations, but just hearing them gives you an idea of how you might interpret them at some point. Later, she also gives a warning, this is Quaithe still, gives a warning in Daenerys' hallucinations. And again she says, quote, "To go north you must journey south. To reach the west you must go east. To go forward you must go back. To touch the light you must pass beneath the shadow." Quaithe, Dany called. "Where are you, Quaithe?" Then she saw, "Her mask is made of starlight. Remember who you are, Daenerys." The stars whispered in a woman's voice, "The dragons know, do you?" Unquote. So, that's another one, and they're, like I said, not all of them have interpretations, but just hearing them gives you an idea of what you might want to interpret at some point, what you think it means. That's why, like I said, it's semi-spoilery, but at the same time, nobody really knows until the end of the story. Alright, now, this is the thing that I said was my biggest problem with Season 2. A lot of people hated Season 2 and a lot of people hated Daenerys' storyline, but my biggest problem, my only real problem with Season 2, is the fact that they cut out all the visions and prophecies and premonitions and dreams she had in the House of the Undying. That was my only complaint about Season 2. And I found the House of the Undying to be one of the most important parts of the story. And they didn't show any of it on the show. And because of that, that's why I wanted to do this video, because a lot of these visions seem very important, and many of them have already come true as of Season 4. So anyway, in the House of the Undying, Dany gets prophecies. Well, apparently they're legitimate, including omens of the Red Wedding. Those visions are fairly cryptic. Also, since the Undying ones are hostile towards Dany, it's conceivable that parts of the visions are adulterated. So here's all the one vision in the book. Here's what it says. Farther on, she came upon a feast of corpses, savagely slaughtered. The feasters lay strewn across overturned chairs and hacked trestle tables, a sprawl in pools of congealing blood. Some had lost limbs, even heads. Savage limbs clutched bloody cups, wooden spoons, roast fowl, hills of bread. On a throne above them sat a dead man with the head of a wolf. He wore an iron crown and held a leg of lamb in one hand, as a king might hold a scepter, and his eyes followed Dany with mute appeal. So, given those lines from the book, people believe that is talking about the Red Wedding. But all of her visions One is a beautiful naked woman being ravished by 4 of the dwarves who serve the house. And that, a lot of people think, foretells the War of the 5 Kings. And the feast of slaughtered corpses holding cups, spoons, and food with a dead man with a wolf's head sitting on a throne wearing an iron crown. A lot of people believe that was foreshadowing the Red Wedding. And she also sees her childhood home with the red door in Bravos, where she was living with Viserys and Illyria Montpatis. And she also sees a throne room with dragon skulls on the wall, where a king resembling her father sits on a barbed throne and appears to be giving an order to burn the Red Keep during the sack of King's Landing. There's also a room where a silver-haired man, presumably her oldest brother Rhaegar, names his son Aegon, and says that the child is the prince that was promised. Then he plays a harp. There's another one where she sees a splendor of wizards who falsely claim to be the Undying of Quaithe and offer to teach Daenerys the secret speech of dragonkind. Now, upon reaching the chamber of the Undying, Dany is spoken to in a whisper, and the Undying ones call her the Mother of Dragons and Child of 3, and tell her some prophecies saying 3 fires must you light, 1 for life and 1 for death, and 1 to love. 3 mounts must you ride, 1 to bed, and 1 to dread, and 1 to love. 3 treasons will you know, once for blood, once for gold, and once for love. Now the Undying ones showed Dany many more visions before attacking her, and Drogon killed them, which of course didn't happen that way on the show. But anyway, the other visions she sees are Viserys' gruesome death, a tall lord with copper skin and silver gold hair beneath the banner of a fiery stallion with a burning city in the background, and a lot of people believe that that is a glimpse of what Rhaegar's future would have been if she would have had the child. And she also sees a dying prince, likely Rhaegar Targaryen, at the Ruby Ford Trident where Robert killed him. And they show rubies flying from his chest, and he mutters a woman's name with his last breath, which most people believe was the name Lyanna. Then she sees a blue-eyed king who casts no shadow, raises a red sword in his hand. And some people think that may represent Stannis Baratheon with the sword Lightbringer, because Stannis has blue eyes, and his shadow was used to kill Renly, and the red sword, of course, is the flaming sword that Melisandre gave him. She also sees a cloth dragon swinging on poles amidst a cheering crowd, which could very well be the scene we get in the show where the flag is hanging above Meereen over the Harpy statue, the Targaryen flag. Then there's one that has a great stone beast, takes wing from a smoking tower, breathing shadows. That could be the stone dragon that Melisandre is trying to bring into being. Another is Daenerys' her silver horse, trots through the grass to a darkling stream under a sea of stars. Another thing she sees is a corpse standing at the prow of the ship with bright eyes and gray-smiling lips. People think that's referring to somebody with grayscale on a ship, or a Greyjoy, perhaps. And then there's one that's a blue flower growing from a chink in a wall of ice, filling the air with sweetness. That one, I want to believe, is the blue flower represents the blue flowers that Rhaegar gave Lyanna. The wall, of course, is the wall. So, something having to do with Rhaegar and Lyanna being at the wall and filling the air with sweetness. R plus L equals J, anybody? So that's how I take that one. It's saying that Jon really is Rhaegar and Lyanna's kid, and he's going to fix things. Like I said, there was that other premonition where he might be dead, but if you get to the Azor Ahai one, Jon dying actually isn't as bad as I would originally have thought it to be. But anyway, now we move from Dany onto some prophecies that Jojen Reed has, because he is a seer as well, and he's the one that teaches Bran about his visions and all that. Jojen has prophetic green dreams, and he says that his visions always come true. He claims to know the date of his own death, which of course he said in season 4 before he got killed. So far, he hasn't been proven wrong, although some of his visions have a lot of symbolism and are usually poor on detail. For instance, he had a dream about the Frey cousins, who aren't even on the show, but they were in the book. And they use a mill as a symbol for their new family. In A Clash of Kings, the second book, Jojen talks about this dream. Now, this dream was included on the show, but Bran said that it was his dream. You'll recognize it when you hear it. If you've seen season 2, which I hope you have if you're listening to this. Okay, but this was actually Jojen's dream originally. I dreamed that the sea was lapping all around Winterfell. I saw black waves crashing against the gates and towers, and then the salt water came flowing over the walls and filled the castle. Drowned men were floating in the yard. When I first dreamed the dream back at Greywater, I didn't know their faces, but now I do. The Elbelly is one, the guard who called our names at the feast, your Septon's another, your Smith as well. And that dream apparently foresees the capture of Winterfell by Theon and the Ironborn, which happens in season 2. Bran tries to warn the people in the vision that they're going to drown, but they of course don't believe him, as Mira said that they wouldn't believe him anyway. But then each of them actually do come to die by the hands of the Ironborn. And then Jojen tells Bran of a dream in which Reek... Now, see, this is where we get into a bit of a difference between the book and the show. Reek was actually Ramsay in disguise at Winterfell when Theon came there. So that didn't happen on the show, but it did happen in the book. Ramsay was disguised as Reek, and he was at Winterfell when Theon took over. But anyway, Jojen told Bran about a dream in which Reek, aka Ramsay, in disguise, apparently had killed the Stark boys and is skinning their bodies. Now, this is what happens in the book as opposed to the show. The dream itself says, quote, I dreamed of the man who came today, the one they call Reek. You and your brother lay dead at his feet, and he was skinning off your faces with a long red blade, unquote. And, like I said, Reek is actually Ramsay Snow. And following the advice of Ramsay as Reek, Theon kills 2 boys and presents the preserved corpses as Bran and Rickon. So, in the book, Ramsay is disguised as Reek, and he's the one that kills the 2 farmers' boys. And he, instead of burning them like they do on the show, he skins them so nobody can recognize them. So, Jojen foretold this, that the one called Reek, aka Ramsay, would be skinning Bran and Rickon Stark. When in actuality, it was Ramsay skinning the 2 farmers' boys and passing them off as Bran and Rickon. But anyway, like I said, it's a little different in the show than on the book. And I'm not a book person, but that just helps explain that. I mean, I can see them cutting out visions like that, which are wrong according to what happens in the show, but are right according to what happens in the book. I can understand them cutting out those visions, but not all the rest. Alright, another vision is from the Ghost of High Heart. Now, the Ghost of High Heart is this mysterious dwarf woman who sometimes tells of the future to the Brotherhood without banners. And she's not on the show either, at least not yet. Of course, we've barely seen the Brotherhood yet either. She has shown knowledge of the deaths of Renly, Balon, and Catelyn, and even of the coming of Lady Stoneheart. My other complaint about the show, that's really been cut. But anyway, she says, quote, I dreamt a wolf howling in the rain, but no one heard his grief, the dwarf woman was saying. I dreamt such a clangor, I thought my head might burst, drums and horns and pipes and screams, but the saddest sound was the little bells, unquote. And that is believed to be a vision of the Red Wedding, including Aegon Frey, who's Jingle Bell, who also wasn't in the show. So, like I said, I can see how they could cut out visions that have to do with things that weren't on the show. But the ones that are going to be on the show or have been on the show, I don't think they should have cut out. And it kind of makes me worry that they're planning on cutting out a lot of the things that the prophecies foretell, which is scary, considering that means they're cutting out the entire point of the show. But like I said, I'm not a book person, but when they cut these things, it makes me worry about how they're going to end the show the same way as the books, which they've always said they were going to do. But we'll see. Now, the next one I referred to a little bit in my review of episode 202 about Cersei's hatred for Tyrion. Now, I didn't give it away in the review because I do the reviews as if you haven't read the books and you haven't seen ahead. And plus, I think that this particular vision is meant to be included in season 5. Finally, maybe they're finally going to include a bunch of them. And that's why they moved Bran's storyline ahead so far. Maybe, hopefully, they're going to use Bran to have all these visions and prophecies and dreams finally in season 5 that explains a bunch of things and does cover all these prophecies that we haven't heard and just say that Bran had them all, because they already did that with Jojen's dream about the Ironborn. So maybe they're going to do that with Bran in season 5, because I heard they are casting Maggy the Frog, and that too gives the next prophecy. And I think it is one of the coolest prophecies ever, because it really, really helps explain the way Cersei acts. But in A Feast for Crows, the 4th book, it's revealed that in 276 AC, after Aegon's conquest, during the tourney for the Mad King at Lannisport, Cersei Lannister and her friend Melisandre Heatherspoon consulted with a seer named Maggy the Frog about their futures. Jane Farman was also with them, but fled scared before they actually heard any predictions. Much to Melisandre's surprise, she learned that instead of someday marrying Jaime Lannister, she was fated to die soon. In fact, as it turned out, she was going to die that very night. The predictions also about Cersei were made just moments before, were more detailed, and Cersei's confused. She's told that her husband will have 16 children and she'll have 3. And the identity of her future husband, the eventual fates of her children, and the prophecies contribute to the way she behaves. And she also hears about the queen that would take her place, and she supposes it's Marjorie, but, you know, that's still up for debate. Anyway, the exact prophecy goes. Cersei says, when will I wed the prince? And Maggy says, never, you will wed the king. Cersei says, I will be queen though. And Maggy says, I, queen you shall be, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. Cersei says, well, the king and I have children. And Maggy says, oh, aye, 6 and 10 for him, and 3 for you. Gold shall be their crowns, and gold their shrouds, she said, and when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. And Melisandre says, will I marry Jaime? And Maggy says, not Jaime, nor any other man. Worms will have your maidenhead. Your death is here tonight, little one. Can you smell her breath? She is very close. Unquote. So yeah, that's the Maggy prediction to Cersei, which explains a heck of a lot about Cersei's behavior. Now, if we go through this word for word, Cersei asks if she'll marry the prince because she believes that she's supposed to marry Rhaegar Targaryen, and Maggy says, you'll never marry him, you'll wed the king. Which basically means that Robert is going to kill Rhaegar and become king, and then Cersei will marry Robert instead. So that's come true. And then Cersei says, I will be queen, though. And Maggy says, yes, you'll be queen until another comes along, younger and beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. And many people have theories that this, well, Cersei believes it's Marjorie, because Marjorie is the one that is supposed to become queen at the end of season 4. And she believes it's Marjorie. Other people think that it could be Sansa, Or Daenerys, possibly. Or maybe any other female in the show that you never know who's going to still be alive at the end of everything. But yeah, that's what she believes. I don't know if you can hear the phone, but it keeps ringing. It's really annoying. But anyway, and then Cersei asks, will the king and I have children? She says, yes, he'll have 16 and you'll 3. So that is another reference to the fact that Robert had a bunch of bastard children and Cersei only had 3 kids, so that part came true too. And she also goes into this part where she says, gold shall be their crowns and gold their shrouds, which is saying that all of her children are going to be on the throne at some point, and all of them are going to die before Cersei does. And at the end of season 4, 2 of her children have already been on the throne, and 1 has already died. And Myrcella is engaged to the Prince of Dorne, and in Dorne, females are allowed to rule. But according to this, they're all going to rule, and they're all going to die before Cersei does. And then she goes on to say, and when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale-white throat and choke the life out of you. So, and when your tears have drowned you, that implies that all of her children will be dead before Cersei is. And the Valonqar is a Valyrian word for little brother. So according to this, the little brother is going to kill Cersei. Kind of explains why she hates Tyrion, doesn't it? Because Tyrion's her little brother. However, that is what Cersei believes it means. And prophecies are open to interpretation. And it doesn't say your little brother, it says the Valonqar. So it could be anybody who is a male with an older sibling. And another fun fact, Cersei was born before Jaime. So Jaime is Cersei's little brother as well. But like I said, that could apply to any male on the show who has an older sibling, so that's a lot of people that it could be. But, of course, Cersei believes it's going to be Tyrion. And that's the big reason she hates Tyrion. Because she was told this when she was like 9 years old, that her little brother is going to kill her. So, yeah, that explains a lot of why she hates Tyrion. And then, of course, the last part, with Melisandre asking if she's going to marry Jaime. And Maggy says, no, you're going to die as a virgin. You're going to die tonight. And death is here for you tonight. Can you smell her breath? She is very close. And what that is about, like I said, I think it's going to be in season 5. But if you already read the books, you don't care. Or if you just don't care, you don't care. Because of hearing all these prophecies, Cersei actually, she killed Melisandre that night, so Melisandre couldn't tell anybody about the prophecy. She threw her down a well. So Cersei was actually a murderer when she was 9 years old. She killed her friend, just so her friend couldn't tell anybody about the prophecies. So, like I said, in my Season 2, Episode 2 review, this prophecy explains a lot about Cersei. And, I do believe they're covering this prophecy in Season 5, because they're casting Maggy the Frog. But anyway, that explains a lot about Cersei. Now, I also said in my Season 2 review that we get some of Melisandre's prophecies in the show. Now, Melisandre claims to be able to see the future by watching flames, and accuracy is unclear because Melisandre seems to misrepresent things, and she like misrepresents her premonitions as if they were active sorceries as well as the reverse. Now, in any case, while impressive, her future-telling capabilities are not supreme. This Daenerys takes Edric Storm away from Dragonstone without her knowledge and her against her will. Now that's Gendry in the show, but still. And she's also, this one hasn't happened yet, but she's duped by Jon Snow switching one kid with another and allows somebody to escape from Melisandre. Now also, she interprets that there's somebody coming to the wall as Arya Stark, but it's actually not Arya Stark, it's another girl. So her visions aren't always accurate, or she sees things but she's not clear on all the details, basically. Which also, I guess, would explain, in my opinion, why she thought Stannis had anything to do with anything. I really don't like Stannis, but anyway, so, yeah, Melisandre does have prophecies, but all the details are sometimes skewered and not exactly accurate. But, then we get into Azor Ahai. Azor Ahai is a really fun prophecy, and a very important one, I think. Like I said, I haven't read all 5 books. The last 2 books aren't even done, so I could be completely wrong. But it seems like it's really darn important. According to the prophecy in ancient books of the Shai from like 5,000 years ago, Azor Ahai is supposed to be reborn again to challenge the reemergence of the others / White Walkers. This will occur, this is what Melisandre's talking about when you first meet her, after a long summer, when an evil cold darkness descends upon the world, and it's said that Azor Ahai, wielding Lightbringer, will stand against the White Walkers, and if he fails, the world fails with him. And this is what Melisandre's talking about when we first meet her. There will come a day after a long summer when the stars bleed and the cold breath of darkness falls heavy on the world. In this dread hour, a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword, and that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, and he who clasps it shall be Azor Ahai, come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt. So, she interpreted that to mean Stannis Baratheon, as he's Azor Ahai, and she gave him the sword because of this. Now, she also says, just as a follow-up to this, not going into why I think it's so ridiculous that she thinks it's Stannis, but she says, I pray for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, and R'hllor shows me only snow. Now, Azor Ahai, Azor space Ahai, is their savior. R'hllor is her god, her lord of light. And the important thing about this prophecy is it could be taken a few different ways, but what I think is the important thing is that she says R'hllor shows her only snow. And snow is capitalized. Like it's a name. So that seems to show that Jon Snow, rather than Stannis, is Azor Ahai. Though she doesn't seem to get that. However, they hint at this a little bit at the final episode of Season 4, when she gives Jon that really strange look through the fire. And see, this is why I said that Jon dying when... Jon is one of my favorite characters, but him dying... I was like, no, that cannot happen. But if you look at this prophecy, in order to prove that he is Azor Ahai, he has to be reborn, or born again, which means he has to die first, before it can be proven that he is Azor Ahai. So, Jon Snow is the leading contender for who Azor Ahai might actually be. Although, Dany fits that too. Because Dany was born again amidst smoke and salt. And another part of the Azor Ahai thing says that he shall wake dragons from stone. Which is why Melisandre is trying to wake the stone dragon. But Dany already did that. She woke dragons from stone. So, most people believe that Azor Ahai has to be either Jon Snow or Daenerys. And it seems like it's probably going to be Jon, but there's a lot of arguments for it being Daenerys, too. So, in that kind, well, they're both my favorite characters. And plus, the dragon has 3 heads. Maybe there's going to be 3 people that represent Azor. But, whatever. We'll see. Don't know. Like I said, it's prophecy. It's all up for interpretation. Now we get into some Jon Snow prophecies. Yes, all the Starks have prophetic dreams. And all of them seem to be accurate except Sansa's. Maybe because Sansa lost her wolf. Just saying. Stark and wolf connection. So Jon Snow seems to have this dream that foreshadows a search of his identity, where he's walking through an empty hall, calling out but unable to find anybody. He has this dream many times, and says that most of the time he's searching for Ned Stark in his dream, but during others he's looking for Robb Stark or Arya Stark, or even his uncle Benjamin Stark. The dream goes, quote, "The castle is always empty. Even the ravens are gone from the rookery, and the stables are full of bones. That always scares me. I start to run then, throwing open doors, climbing the tower 3 steps at a time, screaming for someone, for anyone, and then I find myself in front of the door to the crypts. It's black inside, and I can see the steps spiraling down. Somehow I know I have to go down there, but I don't want to. I'm afraid of what might be waiting for me. The old kings of winter are down there, sitting on their thrones with stone wolves at their feet and iron swords across their laps. But it's not them I'm afraid of. I scream that I'm not a Stark, that this isn't my place, but it's no good. I have to go anyway. So I start down, filling the walls as I descend, with no torch to light the way. It gets darker and darker until I want to scream." Unquote. So, Jon searching for his identity, going into the crypts. It seems like they're saying that Jon has to die in order to become who he's meant to be. Go back to the Azor Ahai prophecies. Looks like that's who Jon's going to be. And remember, Dany also had the vision about the blue rose in the wall of ice, which most people believe, many people believe, represents Jon, because of the R plus L equals J theory. Anyway, Jon also has a dream about his younger brother, who's speaking to him as a weirwood tree, which, after seeing the end of Season 4, isn't quite that far-fetched. In the dream, it goes, quote, "Jon, the call came from behind him, softer than a whisper, but strong too. Can a shout be silent?" He turned his head, searching for his brother, for a glimpse of a lean gray shape moving beneath the trees, but there was nothing, only a weirwood. It seemed to sprout from the solid rock, its pale roots twisting up from a myriad of fissures and hairline cracks. The tree was slender compared to other weirwoods. He had seen no more than a sapling it was, yet it was growing as he watched, its limbs thickening as they reached for the sky. Wary, he circled the smooth white trunk until he came to the face. Red eyes looked at him. Fierce eyes they were, yet glad to see him. The weirwood had his brother's face. Had his brother always had 3 eyes? Not always, came a silent shout. Not before the crow. He sniffed at the bark, smelled wolf and tree and boy. But behind that there were other scents, the rich brown smell of warm earth and the hard gray smell of stone. And something else, something terrible, death he knew. He was smelling death. He cringed back, his hair bristling, and bared his fangs. "Don't be afraid, I like it in the dark. No one can see you, but you can see them. But first you have to open your eyes, see like this," and the tree reached down and touched him. Unquote. So again, he's seeing what Bran is going to become, it looks like. I mean, like I said, interpretations. It seems like he's seeing what Bran's about to become. And again, another reference to him needing to die, or smelling death, whatever. And also, this they totally overlooked in the show, but he says he cringed back, his hair bristling, and bared his fangs. This is definitely seeming like it's a reference to the fact that Bran can see things through the wolf in his dreams, which means that Bran can become the wolf, as we know by the end of Season 4. But it also implies that Jon could also become his wolf. There's another prophecy where something about the boy becomes a wolf and then a boy again. And that could, of course, be Bran or possibly Jon, because it looks like Jon is having this dream through his wolf's eyes. So it seems like Jon is a warg too. And, yeah. So that, also, if you think about when Jon kills Orell at the end of Season 3, Orell's consciousness jumps into his hawk. So, and also when Bran fell and should have died, it looked like we were seeing things from the wolf's point of view. So it appears that wargs, when they die, can possibly jump into their animals and live on. Because that's what Orell did. Seems like that's what Bran did when he was close to death. And maybe that's what Jon's gonna do when he dies. Jump into the wolf to live on, and then somehow, probably through Melisandre, since she's at the wall with him now and is starting to sense things about him, probably be brought back. But those are all theories and interpretations and things such as that, which is the fun part about prophecies, because you don't know how it's actually going to turn out. You can only assume and guess and wonder. And the next person who gives prophecies is Moqorro. He is apparently somebody that Tyrion meets over in Essos at some point after Season 4. Like I said, I haven't read ahead, but I've heard lots of spoilers. Moqorro, I think, sounds like he's possibly a Red Priestess. A lot of them are from over there. Varys of Myr, Melisandre from Asshai, Quaithe is from Asshai, and Moqorro seems like somebody Tyrion meets over there. But Moqorro says, quote, "Dragons," Moqorro said in the common tongue of Westeros, "dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark, and you, a small man with a big shadow, snarling in the midst of it all," end quote. So, dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark. So, dragons old and young, Aemon possibly, and Dany, and maybe Jon, if R plus L equals J is true. True and false. That would be Dany, and a lot of people think that the one who's supposed to be Aegon isn't really Aegon, so that would be a false dragon. Bright and dark, nobody's sure about those. I mean, it could be something as simple as the colors of the dragons, or it could be maybe even a reference to the way they look. I mean, obviously, it could be anything, but if it's a reference to the way they look, it could be a reference to the colors of the dragons, or the fact that Jon and Dany look very opposite of each other. Dany is very pale and light complected, and Jon has got the dark hair and everything, but, you know, these are just all guesses. And this Tyrion's among the dragons, which could mean that possibly Tyrion is somehow a dragon as well. And there are theories that the Mad King actually had his way with Tywin's wife. And if you hear about the way Dany's child was born, it was horrific and twisted. That is a lot of the descriptions of how Tyrion was described when he was a younger child. And another thing is, I'm not completely sold on the idea that Tyrion's a Targaryen, but it's possible. But if it is, the dragon has 3 heads. And another thing Jon and Tyrion and Dany all have in common is that their mothers all died giving birth to them. And that's another thing. Dany is called the Child of 3, the Daughter of Death. And if that is true, and R plus L equals J is true, and Tyrion is actually the Mad King's child as well, then all 3 of them had mothers who died giving birth to them. The only one we know for sure is Dany's mother, Rhaella, died having her, Tyrion's mother Joanna died having him, and if R plus L equals J is true, Lyanna died as a result of having Jon. But anyway, like I said, all theories and interpretations. The accepted theory on this is that it foreshadows that Tyrion is going to play an important role in the future involving dragons and the Targaryens. Possible candidates for the Old Dragon are Brynden Rivers, the Three-Eyed Crow, Three-Eyed Raven, and Maester Aemon. Candidates for the Young Dragons may include Dany, or Rhaegar and her dragons, or the one that's supposedly Aegon. Candidates for the True Dragon could be Dany, Aegon, and Jon, whereas popular guesses for candidates for the False Dragon include Aegon, Varys, or Illyrio Mopatis, especially for the identity of the False Dragon. The opinions amongst people differ, but as of yet, nobody knows who the False Dragon actually is. And Makura also says, quote, "Have you seen these others in your fires?" Yes, warily. Or Tyrion says that. And Makura says, "It's only their shadows." Makura said, "One most of all, a tall and twisted thing, with one black eye and 10 long arms, sailing on a sea of blood." Unquote. Makura said that to Tyrion. The vision of the one-eyed kraken on the bloody sea could show that Euron Greyjoy, one of Theon's uncles, will have an important part to play in the future. Then there's another one. Quote, "The Black Priest bowed his head. There is no need. The Lord of Light has shown me your worth, Lord Captain. Every night in my fires I glimpse the glory that awaits you." Unquote. And Makura said that to Victorian Greyjoy, another of Theon's uncles. Makura is insinuating that he knows what will happen to Victorian, though what will happen is not exactly told to the people reading. So. And then we get another character that's been cut from the show, and that's Patchface. And he is a fool at Dragonstone who is Shireen's companion. He recites cryptic jingles that seem to often have a prophetic meaning. And one of them we hear in that one song at the end of the show. And it says, quote, "It is always summer under the sea. The Merwives wear anemones in their hair and weave gowns of silver seaweed. I know, oh, oh, oh." Unquote. That seems to, a lot of people think that predicts Sansa at Joffrey's wedding to Marjorie on the day of the royal wedding. Sansa wears that silver gown and has a hairnet, because it's a hairnet in the book, not a necklace like on the show. The hairnet with purple gemstones, and the anemones that Patchface refers to seem to be a corruption of anemone, which is a purple flower. Sea anemones, which are named after the flower, are poisonous, water-dwelling animals. And the song continues, quote, "The shadows come to dance, my lord, dance, my lord, dance, my lord," he sang, hopping from one foot to the other and back. "The shadows come to stay, my lord, stay, my lord, stay, my lord," unquote. And that seems to be referring to Melisandre's shadow babies that kill people for the Honorable Stannis Baratheon. Yeah, and then another part of the song is, quote, "Fool's blood, king's blood, blood on the maiden's thigh, but chains for the guests and chains for the bridegroom, I, unquote." And a lot of people believe that's talking about the Red Wedding. So, yeah. And another is a dream that Tyrion has. And this is also, I believe, in book 4 or 5. 5, I think. While traveling in the litter, that little carriagey thing they have that Marjorie got out of to go talk to the kids at the orphanage, the litter. Illyrio they're on their way to the Royne, and Tyrion has this dream. And in the book it says, "That night, Tyrion Lannister dreamed of a battle that turned the hills of Westeros as red as blood. He was in the midst of it, dealing death with an axe as big as he was, fighting side by side with Barristan the Bold and Bitter Still as dragons wheeled across the sky above them. In the dream, he had 2 heads, both noseless. His father led the enemy, so he slew him once again. Then he killed his brother Jaime, hacking at his face until it was a red ruin, laughing every time he struck a blow. Only when the fight was finished did he realize that his second head was weeping." So, and by the way, Bitter Still, I believe, is Azor Rivers. Somebody else got that? But A lot of people believe that foretells a battle where Daenerys Targaryen's forces led by Barristan and the Golden Company, which is a sellsword company, assault Westeros. So, is Dany finally going to get to Westeros, Tyrion? Finally? Is that what you're trying to tell us? Finally? But anyway, and then Jaime also has some interesting dreams. He has the first of his dreams when he's asleep on a werewood stump after he left Harrenhal. So this is right after he rescued her from the bear pit. So it was also cut out of the book. So he's dreaming that he's in Casterly Rock and he's got both of his hands again, but he's naked and alone. And a dozen tall dark figures in robes are hiding their faces. They hold spears and refuse to answer Jaime when he demands to know who they are. Instead, with their spears, they force him to descend into the deepness. And it says, below the earth, his doom awaited. He knew with the certainty of dreams something dark and terrible lurked there, something that wanted him. Jaime tried to halt, but their spears prodded him on. If only I had my sword, nothing could harm me. And then Jaime eventually finds himself in this deep, watery cavern below Casterly Rock, but it's a place he doesn't recognize, and he wonders out loud where he is, and the voices of the Lannisters answer him, your place. And Jaime sees his father, his sister, and his eldest son. And it says, this is your place, brother, this is your darkness. Her torch was the only light in the cavern. Her torch was the only light in the world. She turned to go. Stay with me, Jaime pleaded. Don't leave me here alone. But they were leaving. Don't leave me in the dark. Something terrible lived down here. Give me a sword at least. I gave you a sword, Lord Tywin said. It was at his feet. Jaime groped under the water until his hand closed upon the hilt. Nothing can hurt me so long as I have a sword. As he raised the sword, a finger of pale flame flickered at the point and crept along the edge, stopping a hand's breadth from the hilt. The fire took on the color of the still itself, so it burned with a silvery blue light, and the gloom pulled back. Crouching, listening, Jaime moved in a circle, ready for anything that might come out of the darkness. The water flowed into his boots, ankle deep and bitterly cold. Beware the water, he told himself. There may be creatures living in it, hidden deeps. And then, in the dream, Brienne appears from the darkness, and her hands are bound. She's also naked, and she asks Jaime to undo her chains. And when she asks, a sword appears, and both Brienne's sword and Jaime's are aflame. And it goes on to say, the flames will burn so long as you live, he heard Cersei call. When they die, so must you. Then Cersei leaves, and Jaime and Brienne are left alone. And it goes on, do they keep a bear down here? Brienne was moving slow and wary, sword to hand. Step, turn, and listen. Each step made a little splash. A cave lion, dire wolf, some bear. Tell me, Jaime, what lives here? What lives in the darkness? Doom. No bear, he knew. No lion. Only doom. Now, this part of the dream seems to foreshadow Brienne's encounter with the bear at Harrenhal, from which Jaime will later save her. And Jaime and Brienne are talking about what they should do when the shadows appear in the darkness. And Jaime knows who they are. They're supposedly Oswell Went, Jon Derry, Lewin Martell, Gerald Hightower, Arthur Dayne, and Rhaegar Targaryen. During the dream, Brienne repeats a few times how she swore to keep Jaime safe. And it's the shadow of Sir Arthur Dayne who tells them that they all swore an oath. And the shadows blame Jaime for the deaths of Aerys, Elio, Rhaenys, and Aegon. And that's when the fire of Jaime's sword starts going out. Yeah. So, then Jaime has this other dream. Like I said, you can interpret them as you will. I know how I interpret at least the last part of that one. It's Jaime's fault. All the Targaryens get killed. But anyway, Jaime has another dream. And it's apparently at some point after River Run has been handed over to his Aunt Jaime Lannister and his Uncle Aemon Frey, and he dreams of his mother, but at first he does not recognize her. And the dream goes, she raised a pale, soft hand and pushed her hood back. Have you forgotten me? Can I forget someone I never knew? The words caught in his throat. He did know her, but it had been so long. Will you forget your own Lord Father, too? I wonder if you ever knew him truly. Her eyes were green, her hair spun gold. He could not tell how old she was. 15, he thought, or 50. She climbed the steps to stand alone, the beer. He could never abide being laughed at. That was the thing he hated most. Who are you? He had to hear her say it. The question is, who are you? This is a dream. Is it? We all dream of things we cannot have. Tywin dreamed that his son would be a great knight, that his daughter would be a queen. He dreamed they would be so strong and brave and beautiful that no one would ever laugh at them. I am a knight, he told her, and Cersei is a queen. A tear rolled down her cheek. The woman raised her hood again and turned her back on him. Jaime called after her, but already she was moving away, her skirt whispering lullabies as it brushed across the floor. Don't leave me, he wanted to call, but of course she'd left them long ago. So, those are just a few of the many dreams and prophecies and visions that are in the books that have, almost none of them have appeared on the show. And like I said, that is my big problem with the show. I'm also a little annoyed about the Lady Stoneheart thing, but I'm going to hold my opinion and until I find out if she actually isn't going to be on the show. But that's my one complaint, because prophecies and dreams and visions are very important and can be interpreted so many ways, and they make things so much more interesting, especially when you get into the whole Azor Ahai business, and is it Dany, is it Jon, is it actually Stannis, which seems ridiculous to me, but, yeah, and okay, so if Dany or Jon are Azor Ahai, what's that mean? What's going to happen? Because according to the prophecy, Azor Ahai is going to save the world from the White Walkers, and if he doesn't, well, they're all going to perish and be doomed. So it gives you a lot of little hints and clues and wonderings about who is it, what's it mean, what's going to happen, how's it going to turn out, all kinds of fun stuff. And I think that that is a big part of the enjoyment of the book series, is you get all these little hints and clues, but you never actually know for sure. But it gives you a lot to speculate about and a lot to ponder, and makes you pay more attention and try to figure things out. It makes it more mysterious and gives you things to try to decipher. And the fun is, ooh, I got that right. Ooh, I didn't get that right. So that's why I am kind of upset that they've left almost all the prophecies and dreams out of the show. And I'm really hoping that in Season 5 they're going to try to remedy that somewhat. Because, like I said, they're casting Maggy the Frog, and that is one of the most interesting prophecies, other than Azor Ahai. And because of Bran discovering his power already, at the end, well, not discovering it, but knowing of it, you know how Season 4 ended if you've watched it, it opens up a lot of doors for Bran to show the audience things that happened in the past, present, and future far away that nobody else could know about. And I think that that would be a very interesting turn for them to take, and it would give them a chance to include all this stuff that hasn't been included in the last 4 seasons. I mean, yeah, I would have liked it if they would have included it as it went, but if they can go back and fix that in Season 5, and then at least include it at that point, that would make up for it, in my opinion. I would like to see it when it should have been shown, but if they can put it in Season 5, then I can go along with that. That's fine. I think it should be included. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I usually don't do anything spoilery, and I haven't even read all the books, and all this information that I just gave in this video is right there on the Wiki of Ice and Fire. That's all I know about most of it, because like I said, I've only read the first 2 books, although I'm starting the 3rd one soon. But anyway, yeah. I love prophecies and dreams and visions, and they really make you think and really make you wonder how everything's going to turn out. And I really hope that they are included at some point in the show. And because of what they've done with Bran, I'm hoping that is how they're going to use Bran in upcoming episodes to explain all this stuff that we've missed so far. So hopefully that's what they'll do. So anyway, like I said, that's my opinion, and the one problem I have with the show, and I'm hoping they're gonna fix it in Season 5. And after this, I'll go back to my regular reviews. But like I said, I didn't have all the screen caps ready at this point, but I did have some time to do this review, or not review, but do this video. So I wanted to get this out of the way, because prophecies and dreams and visions are very interesting and very important to the story, and I just wanted to share all the stuff that we've missed in the show. So like I said, there were some spoilers in this, but I warned you ahead of time. And, again, that's just the occasions that things happen during, because you can't really spoil with prophecies because you don't really know what they mean until they happen. So anyway, that's my opinion and why I think that they should include all the prophecies and dream visions. And I'll get back to my regular reviews soon, and hopefully you'll watch them and comment and like and subscribe. Bye all.